We are one day away from Election Day, but getting the right to vote for everyone, regardless of race or gender, took a lot longer than days to achieve. Ahead of the midterms, KIMT News 3's Alex Dieterer shares the history of voting rights on a national level and locally in Olmsted County.
In an effort to stop the women's suffrage movement, politicians had suffragists thrown in jail, but instead the suffragists took it as a rite of passage. As early as the 1860s, the women of Olmsted County demanded the right to vote from the state legislature, and then waited decades more for that to finally come to fruition with the 1920 ratification of the 19th Amendment.
A lot of people still really don't fully understand how important it was in moving ahead the expansion of the suffrage for well, almost half the country, because women are at least half the country, right?
Ganaway says the women's struggle for the right to vote really highlights the messiness of the fight for that right. He says politicians used to use that right to vote as a leverage of power, oftentimes pinning one group of people against another to try and divide them, fracture their efforts, and limit their success. A key example of this was Frederick Douglass, an advocate for both women's suffrage and black suffrage.
He could not convince the radical Republicans to give both women the right to vote and black men the right to vote. And so he had to choose which one to advocate for more, and because no black people had the right to vote, he felt that first prioritize black men.
Even here in Minnesota, as recent as the early 1900s, there were laws in place limiting the right for Native Americans to vote, requiring them to do things like
completely divorce themselves of their cultural traditions and how they dress, their religion, what they do to support their families. So they used the right to vote as a way of squashing the cultural heritage of Native Americans.
Ganaway says it's important for people to reflect on this history and reflect on who and what got us to where we are. While no one is required to vote, the ability to vote is a right centuries in the making. In Rochester, Alex Dieterer, KIMT News 3.
The polls are open tomorrow from 7 in the morning until 8 in the evening.